Welcome to my fortnightly chat. Before I get too far into having a little chat to you tonight, I'm going to try and introduce you to somebody. He may or may not play ball, but just a moment. Now, Diego, up, come on, here's a boy. Diego, come here. Shake. Good boy. All right, what do they say? Don't work with small children and animals. That is Diego. I am dog sitting, house sitting, whatever. He's house sitting. He belongs to my daughter, son-in-law, and their 3 little children. And I wanted to introduce you to him because I was going to have a little chat tonight about, well, companions, particularly when it comes to perhaps pets and the role that they can play, particularly in these difficult times we're going through. I'm looking after him because he can't go to his new home because the backyard that he will be living in when he goes there is a sea of mud, and there's no way his mother wants him going outside and coming into her brand new home, bringing the mud that he will bring with him. Right now I have to vacuum every other day because, as you can see, he's this beautiful big golden retriever who likes to shed fur everywhere, including all over this black top I've got. But let me just say, all my friends in Melbourne, I'm with you. I feel your pain. For those outside of Melbourne, we got put into lockdown yesterday, and even more restrictions were put on us today. I cannot go more than 5 kilometres from my home, allowed out once a day for 1 hour of exercise. Sound familiar? Who else gets 1 hour of exercise? And one person only can go with me to go to the shops or whatever. No one. Must go alone. These are new rules, and I'm just trying to get a handle around them myself because they're so new. But it made it all the more important for me to introduce you to Diego and talk about the role that he's going to have. He doesn't know it yet. I haven't quite got the rules handed down to him. But I know that over the next 6 weeks, for as many hours as I'm up each day, which is quite a lot, he will be following me around for all but that 1 hour that I leave home to go and exercise or shop. Whatever room I'm in, he's literally lying sprawled over my feet as I'm talking right now. And this is the great thing about, well, dogs perhaps a little bit more than cats. I have to admit, I quite like cats too. But they're there for you. They're unconditional. They provide you with this companionship. Whether you want it or not, it doesn't matter. They're there. Now, with regard to pets and animals, and the reason why I'm talking about them in this manner, other than what he's going to give to me, is that 2 dogs I've mentioned to you before, Tootsie and Bam Bam, were incredibly significant in Lali's life. These 2 dogs, the one I describe as being the size of a small pony and the other smaller than my cat, were with him constantly. Whenever he was in his apartment, like Diego, they were there with him, at his feet. If he got up to go somewhere, they got up and went with him. Initially, I was quite unnerved by them in terms of the fact that they would leave and go with Lali, and often would poke their head around the kitchen door and look at me while he was still out of sight to make sure that I was still there and not getting up to mischief, I presume. But I grew to love them too. They were there when he answered the door to me, and maybe I'm a little bit responsible for befriending them because, well, what do dogs like, don't they? They like treats, they like schmackos. And after a few weeks, I asked Lali, could I bring them a treat? And he said, of course, yes. And so they were always waiting for me to hand that treat over to them. I didn't make them wait too long. But in terms of what they brought to Lali in terms of company, it can't be measured. He adored them. He called them either his doggies or his kiddos. And more often than not, his kiddos. He saw them as being his four-legged children. And to him, they gave him all that comfort that he needed when he was alone. Look, he took them for walks, and that wasn't always a good thing for him to be doing sometime, given he was often frail. And oh gosh, I had a flashback then to going round to see him once, and he answered the door, and I was horrified to see this man standing in front of me. His face was so bruised and blackened. And we went inside, and I made him sit down, and he rolled up his sleeves and showed me his arms, and equally they were all bruised and blackened, and his legs. And I talked about what happened and did he need to see a doctor, and he assured me no, he was fine. He had that old person. When we get older, unfortunately, our skin tends to get a little bit weaker and can't quite handle the knocks and the bumps that we get it. Anyway, the night before, he'd taken the doggies out for a walk, and by the way, it was the middle of winter, and he'd gone out in the dark, and he told me something had startled the dogs, and they pulled on the lead, and he wasn't expecting that. Normally they're incredibly obedient, and they just walked along with him, and they bolted, and they pulled him, and he went down. Took a nasty tumble, and he was right. It was just all bruises and little bits of skin scraped here and there. So I'm not quite sure that that's a good thing to be talking about when you're animals. Those companions that I'm talking about, who provide you with so much, can also give you so much by way of bruises and batterings. But he loved them nonetheless. And every evening when I left him, or any time I left him, I think I told you, he would go out onto the balcony that overlooked the drive and overlooked the street where my car parked. And the dogs were out there too. The doggies were there, the kiddos. And he would be waving goodbye, and I'd be getting the barks from them. Important to him. This guy's getting to be important to me. I've had him now for a couple of months, with a good few weeks, I think, still to go. And it doesn't take long for an animal to worm their way into your life and provide you with a company. Many of the letters I've received from people too, they talk about how they have a cat or a dog and the significance of them in their lives and providing them with the same comfort I'm talking about. Yeah, look, I've had cats most of my life as well most of my adult life. And I like cats. I think I like their independence and the fact that they really don't give a toss. And yes, I don't think I've ever had one where I've had my 45 minutes per day allocated pleasure from him or her. But they're nice to have around the house, and they're nice to just see them curled up, and then occasionally they come and sit on you. Now, cats and dogs as pets is something that was foreign to me growing up. And living in a rural area, yeah, we had cats and we had dogs, but the cats were there to keep the mice at bay out in the hay shed or wherever, particularly the sheds we had for storing produce in it, like food, the food that we had grown and harvested and stored. And my parents grew potatoes enough to last us 12 months, and we had a potato shed that was just stacked to the gunnels with sacks of potatoes. So the cats that I grew up with, they had a job, keep the mice and the rats at bay. They did a pretty good job. And of course dogs in a rural area, well, they're working animals, aren't they? And the befriending we did of them was just giving them a few pats in the paddock when they're helping to round up cows or at the milk shed, but they were never allowed inside. That was never even thought of. And they pretty much were a one person, one owner beast. And it was, of course, always the man of the house. So to me, having pets as a child did not extend to the normal, the cats and the dogs. So I had to get my pets and my company from the non-humans in other ways. And I literally drove my mother crazy, as she would often find in my bedroom, things I'd smuggled in there to be my pet. I'm talking about a hedgehog, tadpoles that I'd be keeping in a bowl, waiting for them to grow into frogs, and then trying to keep them when they were frogs. The frogs, they gave themselves away. The tadpoles, not so much. I could hide them. But many critters like that were what I would take and try and have as a pet. I seem to crave needing something like that to look after. I was always drawn to caterpillars and butterflies, mesmerised by the metamorphosis that takes place with them. And at those certain times of the year, I would go and from the trees where small branches with leaves with a chrysalis hanging from it, I would go and just snap them off and put them in a shoebox and keep them in my bedroom, waiting for the day that I would open it and the butterflies would have emerged. So that's kind of what I did in terms of having a pet. But for now, I'll settle with Diego. And the reason I had a dog, well, we had a dog, I shouldn't say we had a dog, Lucy. She was a Spodel, and we had her for about 15 years, and she died about 2 years ago, just as I started travelling. And of course I wanted to replace her, but common sense got in the way, and given that I was travelling so much for the last 2 years, not so much in the last 6 months, and knowing that I would be continuing to travel, hopefully I'll get back to it, I did not replace Lucy. But I will. For me, writing all those hours at night, because that's when I had to write, working full time, she was always there at my feet, no matter what the hour of the night or morning, early hours were. And I knew I could just reach down at any point, give her chin a bit of a scratch, and she'd lift her head and look at me, take the scratch, and then get on with it, i.e. sleeping. It's just that knowing that somebody is there. Now, it doesn't have to be a four-legged person, of course, to be your companion. And for most of us, it's not. It's partners, it's children, it's grandchildren. But just the importance of having that other people or person. It doesn't have to be many. One's enough. In your life that is there unconditionally, that is there to listen to you, even when you've got nothing to say, just be with you. That'll do it. And that whole comes back to, where do we find hope in our lives? And yeah, it's tough right now. And like I just said, it's just got a whole lot tougher for us here in Melbourne and in Victoria. Part of me wishes we had have done this sooner. And it was always, I think, on the cards up to a few weeks ago that with the plan that the Australian government had adopted of, well, not eradication, but suppression of COVID-19, that the risk of a second and subsequent waves of the disease, the virus, could come and get us, and it has. So fingers crossed that we get through these next 6 weeks and we come out the other side. I know we will. For the majority of people, the vast majority of people, that we're all doing the right thing. But once again, where do we get our hope to get through these next 6 weeks? Already I was speaking to my daughter only an hour or so ago, because as of tomorrow, she's back homeschooling. And all the trauma that brings for her, and her doubting herself to be able to homeschool 2 small children with a little man who's turning 1 on Wednesday. Well, that little man now is becoming very involved in the household and moves around very quickly. And that whole, how do I homeschool, is creating, stress levels in her, as it will be all the parents in Melbourne and Victoria who are now back homeschooling. And so I talk to her like I'm probably chatting to you and saying, we will get through it. As Lily would say, we wake up every morning. So it's a good day, even with everything that's going on around us. It's still a damn good day, guys, because we woke up. And the sun may not be shining. Tomorrow, I think we're expecting a top temperature of 9 degrees. That's Celsius, and that's pretty chilly. But what does it matter? We're here, we're alive, I'm talking to you, we have food in the house, books to read. What did someone say? Sit down and binge on Netflix. But we have to still find, I think, something else, some kind of hope. And of course, that hope for me comes from the scientists, those people out there on the front line, those people who are working every day, all day, to try and find, well, not only a vaccine so that we can move about again next year, hopefully, but also to be able to find the kind of medicines that can help treat people who do get stricken down with this virus. And so that's where I get my hope from. It's totally in the science, because that is where I believe I'm going to move on from this virus. I don't know where you get your hope from, and it doesn't matter because it's yours. You get to own it, and you get to decide exactly what it is and how you're going to manage it. Maybe it comes from just reading all these wonderful books that are out there and that are available that can inspire you. It can come, I think it'll come from those of you who've got children, that you'll see in them and in their lack of fear, the fact that you do need to give them hope, because, hey, what do you want? What do we all want? But a better future for our children and grandchildren. So, hey, there's hope in spades. There's hope that you and everyone involved are going to do the right thing and keep your children, keep them, particularly the little ones, full of hope that they will be able to go and get out of what they're currently in. You know, one of the things my daughter was talking about on the weekend, as I say, she's got a little fella, he's turning 1, and it occurred to her that for nearly half of his life he hasn't known anything outside his home, or for the 5 weeks he spent living here with me, my home. She hasn't been able to take him to the zoo, to the museum, to playgrounds. His swimming lessons got interrupted 6 months ago. All of those little activities, which to her were important for her children to do, and this little fella has been denied them. I pointed out to him that he doesn't actually know he's been denied them. He's a little bit too young. And the other two, they seem to be okay. They're doing fine. It is her concerns and hers, just like it is for every parent, when we want to do the best we can for our children and something prevents that happening. I know that this little man, when the time comes, he will see plenty of zoos and animals. The museum, which is his brother and sister's one of their favourite places here in Melbourne. He'll know every dinosaur and every little activity there is there to do. He just will, because that's the life that his parents want for him. Now, in terms of a little bit older children, I hope I'm not out of line here by saying something else that, and this is where it's interesting, kids can bring you back to what's going on in our world right now. And to be 6 on Friday, yes, the older boy has his birthday 2 days after his baby brother. And last week when his mum was tucking him into bed and kissing him goodnight, he started crying. And when she asked him what was wrong, his answer was, "I don't want you to die." Now, half an hour of cuddles and talking through what made him bring up that subject and what was really worrying him, he really couldn't articulate it. But she rang me to talk to me about it, and she and her husband talked about why had he brought this up, and I said, he doesn't watch the news, so it's not as if he's seeing things on the news. They've been very, very clear about that. But of course we all talk about what's going on, don't we? And little ears hear it all. And so she was able to reassure him, and I guess that's another lesson, isn't it, for little people? Not to let our fears and our concerns about what's going on go through to them when they cannot process it and they cannot understand, just because of their age. Tell them what is age appropriate with what's going on. While his younger sister just calls it the bug, he doesn't. He actually talks about the coronavirus, and he knows that's why kids don't go to school and why there are restrictions, what he does. So hopefully his mom has filled him with hope of being able to also get back the life that he had, and he'll be back to his athletics hopefully and all those activities that he wants to do and she wants him to do, we all want to do. So really that's all I'm wanting to talk to you about tonight a little bit, is looking for hope and finding it where you can. Now, it's only about another month before my Stories of Hope hits. Well, it's going to, I think, hit the bookshops in the UK about a 10 days or so before here in Australia. But I'm pretty excited about it because I know it went to the printers in London last Thursday, because there was a lot of excitement between my publishers and I that it was ready to go. And that I think it's tomorrow here in Australia that it'll commence its print run. Now, it's been printed in Adelaide, South Australia, and they don't have the restrictions that we have here in Victoria. So hopefully there's nothing stopping those printing presses rolling. And I had hoped that I would be able to get around and promote it and talk at the libraries and the bookstores and meet the many, many readers and people that come to the different places where I go to talk. And, well, that hope has only just got a little dent in it, that's all. You know, I'll be back as soon as I can. In the meantime, I'm still Zooming and Teaming and Skyping. I think I've got a library here in Melbourne tomorrow that is going to be Zooming out into all the homes. I'm still talking to lots and lots of students up in New South Wales and Queensland. And yeah, I love it when they get to ask me questions, and I've said this before, because they often share with me the hope that they found in the book and where they get hope from as young people going forward. It's a crazy word, isn't it? It's just, 4 little letters, and yet it just means so much. You hear it all the time. It's almost a throwaway word for us. Oh, I hope my dinner's on time. Oh, I hope that the sun comes up tomorrow. Yeah, but that's just a very general hope, as in wish. Hoping for things is, I think, more intimate. It's more personal. And when you make your wishes and your hopes for yourself, and to me, I don't think that you can make wishes and hopes and dreams for anybody else until you settle on the ones that you want and what's right for you. So, gosh, I'm sounding a bit preachy tonight. Didn't mean to do that. That's not what this is all about. It's about just having a chat and connecting with you and asking you to stay the course with me and let me get this book out to you. And now that it is ready to go, I can work on the next. And I don't even hope I can work on the next. I know I am, because I am. Now, I'm going to wrap it up tonight because I think I've said enough without going too far in terms of stressing the importance of that word. I hope you all have a wonderful remainder of your day and evening. And I can hope for others. See, I do, and I sincerely hope that for you, by the way. I really do. I was reading part of it's a letter which is going to be in my book. So it's not part of the book, it's just a little letter up front. And in there I talk about that whole notion of when I'm talking to you, it's more when I'm reading your emails, I don't actually just read them. I actually listen to them, because I read them over and over, and because I'm actually trying to hear as much as read what it is you're saying when you write to me. And that just should be the way with you too. It's that whole notion of listening, isn't it? But I do hope that you all have a wonderful remainder of the day or evening. and that in 2 weeks' time I'll come back and I'll have another chat, and there'll be some more to talk about. I'm sorry that Diego didn't give you any more of a cameo appearance than what I managed to get out of him. He has now totally disappeared under the table, and I'm not about to try and drag him up. For now, I say good evening, good morning, thank you, do take care, do stay safe, and do, if you're in Victoria, as we must, wear a mask. Even if you're not in Victoria, do the right thing and protect yourself and protect others by wearing a mask. And give thanks to all those amazing medical, nursing, first responders in all the different hospitals, medical centres around the world, who are devoting every minute of every hour of every shift of every day that they put themselves out there on the line for us. Let's just hope that they get to end that work that is compromising their health as well very, very soon. If we all do our bit, they will. In the meantime, to all my friends in Victoria, please stay safe and look after yourselves. And I'll come back and talk soon. I look forward to any questions that come my way, and I do look forward to answering them. Take care. Good night. Got to push the button.